Hey guys, Tyler 2K here. Today we're going to take a look at the heat engagers. Specifically, we're going to go over the first 10 characters that were shown off and basically go through their heat engager. We're not going to quite make a tier list of some sort, but we're going to take a look at all the information regarding them and then go ahead and also speculate as to what characters are going to get massively buffed, characters are going to get, sorry, nerfed, or whatnot. This will probably be membership only content. I'm going to go ahead and make a part two after BAM. So BAM is this weekend because I have a feeling we'll get some announcement. I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure we'll get an announcement and that will put us to, I believe, 19 characters. So after BAM, assuming it's 19 or 20, we'll go ahead. I'll do it on the second list. Only problem though is those characters, because the public beta is off. There's going to be no sort of like documentation like this, so we're going to have to instead go via the videos where they've shown off. Unfortunately, not all the heat engagers, but usually per video they show off maybe like 4, maybe 5 if we're lucky. But I'll have to go ahead and do that by hand. So that's one of the reasons why I'll probably do that one after the fact. So yeah, this is speculation. Please don't take anything here for a fact. Of course, this is a beta game. The game's not out yet, so everything shown can and might change. This one, I'll probably do a couple of basic overlays that make it easier to kind of flip through. Okay, so Kazuya has some interesting heat engagers. I would say of the ones I've seen so far, and I have not made a video about this, and I haven't really theory crafted this, so this will be going off the cuff here. But Kazuya actually does have not the best in the world, unfortunately, here. And you'll see why. So it looks like a lot of Kazuya's game plan is just going to be around doing chip damage and basically getting into devil mode. When in devil mode, he has access to a tremendous amount of moves. So the fact that, him not having great heat engagers isn't necessarily a problem, because with Kazuya, I think especially, it's really going to be about mainly popping heat and not getting outside of devil form and just using devil form to the maximum. So once again, once you pop heat with Kazuya, you basically have devil form. And whether you're comboing the opponent or getting comboed, you still have devil. And seeing as how rounds in T7 only are relatively about like 25-30 seconds long in general, yeah, realistically, you can pop your heat really early and hold on to devil form for a long time. It's actually a video I was working on, aka video number 2 that I never came out with. But yeah, eventually that will come out. I'll probably be the next major one I work on, probably after BAM, because this weekend's gonna be kind of busy. But yeah, so I think overall it's not going to be like with other characters where it's like heat engager, get heat, pop your in heat mode, pop your heat engager that we can heat dash it. I don't think that's how Kazuya is going to operate. I think, once again, you're going to want to stay in devil form as long as possible to gain access to superior moves. For reference, in Tekken Tag 2, Kazuya was typically considered like middle-of-the-road character, not really that great. But the fact that you can go into like on-demand devil form with up back 1+2 was tremendous. You went from being a middle-of-the-ground character to one of the best characters in the game with touch of death combos, great tag bufferable attacks with great range. You name it. I mean, Devil Kazuya was a menace, and the fact that now you can get Devil Kazuya every round, like on your own terms, is absolutely huge. So, yeah. So that's why I think his heat engagers are going to be kind of lackluster. So yeah, starting off with down forward 1-2, that's basically his standing heat engager. That is, in its current state, causes knockdown, part of his 50-50 between down forward 1-4, which is a spin option, down forward 1-2, which is the mid, and then down forward 1 forward 2, which causes wall splat. So presumably down forward 1 forward 2 is still in the game. So actually, for anyone with Kazuya, rather than possibly losing the potential of a wall splat with heat engager, he still technically would have it with down forward 1 forward 2, assuming that still isn't it. Okay, major benefit of having down forward 1-2, that is his 15 frame knockdown attack. So like with Heihachi, you can pop down forward 1-2 on 13 rather than go for a more technical punish. But with Kazuya, if you either don't want to do the execution for like a perfect electric or a 14 frame electric, or are worried that you're not going to get it, high pressure situation, now the fact that he can do a 15 frame down forward 1-2 and then do the continuation with a heat dash is a really big deal. So that means 15 frame minus 13s on block into it. So that's pretty big. Down back 1-2, to the best of my knowledge, the move very similar to down forward 1-2. So the fact that down back 1-2 has the same properties as down forward 1-2, and of course this is a new move for 8, is no surprise. I really can't comment on down back 1-2, just the fact that it makes sense that it's a heat engager because once again they look very, very similar, although down back 1-2 is Kazuya's spin option specifically, where it causes like they show it in the trailer. I'm not going to do a cutout here, but they do show it in the trailer where it's like a TP and then pushes them pretty high into the air afterwards. So no surprise, they look identical, so practically are going to be identical in usage there. Of course, down back 1-2 is losing 1 input on his duck jab, so you just have to be careful to do down 1 instead of doing down back 1 as well. Back 4 is not a bad thing at all. That is a long range high punisher. It normally causes spin and then also as a counter hit launcher. I don't think back 4 is a counter hit launcher anymore, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it gave some access to a long range punish. Back 4 presumably still being a homing option. And actually, yeah, in the later trailer, back 4, unlike the first teaser trailer that had shown off, back 4 I don't even think causes a airborne spin anymore. So yeah, now it's going to be just really for a high crush tool with a long range spin punisher. Very similar, might as well cut right to the chase. Similar to forward 2. Devil form forward 2 has basically I-17 long range punisher. Causes attack throw, but with heat would then transition into a heat dash where 442 is a long range punisher. It's very similar to back 4. In that way, 442 executes very similarly to his current 442, although Devil 442 is a mid, whereas his, I believe, is a high. So kind of similar situation, that will be your long range punisher. Back 1+2 is basically his back sway. I don't know if it still causes counter hit launcher. So if it still causes counter hit launcher, yeah, this is a great change, getting a back sway that gives you basically a standing 50-50. If he did lose his back sway, well then probably not the best. But I believe it still has its own property. Also, you see there, it causes chip damage. Having a back sway that possibly isn't that punishable and dealing chip damage is actually kind of interesting in its application. But assuming it still launches, great change. If it doesn't, horrible change. Back 1+2 got like majorly nerfed. Okay, next we have Jin. Okay, big. So I believe Rip talked about this. This was maybe about a month or so ago. 1+2 being a heat engager is probably the craziest change in the game. So for context, once again, heat engager basically means it doesn't give you a knockdown or a wall splatter or anything. Just gives you a standing 50-50. But as soon as you have heat, once again, when you have either 1 or 2 of the chains, that allows you to do 1 or 2 heat dashes. So for your 12 frame punisher, you get heat with 2 meters immediately. And then once you have heat already, that makes it so 1+2 is a 12 frame launcher. Jin, by far, like relative to, now granted I haven't looked at everyone, but man, by far, the best heat engager in the game. Absolutely vile. As it currently stands, 1+2 is a jailing high ending attack. That's -14. I wouldn't doubt it if they make it non-jailing just to circumvent this insane buff. Like in the grand scheme of everything, when it comes to like quotes, Tekken 8 is an aggressive game. This is quintessentially that. This is an ugly buff. This is a horrible buff. Massive buff for Jin players to have a 12 frame launcher. What the hell? And like I said, only -14. So, how many characters have we seen so far with a 14 frame Punisher? Jin, Kazuya, Brian. Like, I don't even know if even Xiaoyu has stand 3. So, I mean, okay, yeah, come to think of it now, I say it out loud, there are quite a few characters with 14 frames, but still, like, wow. 12 frame launcher, like I said, I just hope it's maybe non-jailing now. So, we'll see. 4-3 now has an extension. Same thing, it was shown off in the trailer. This is a high follow-up. Same thing, forward 3, presuming it still has the same frame data, which I think I tested, and it doesn't, so I guess it did get nerfed in a way. But basically is a 13 frame or 14 frame mid. It used to be a 12 frame mid, but same thing. You have this forward 3-1, so instead of being a minus 14 jailing 12 frame launcher, now it's possibly a 14 frame mid-high launcher. But same, not terrible, not great at the same time. I think they probably realized that forward 3 by itself getting a buff was too much. So now Jin instead has a Kazumi style like 3-1 or 3-2 rather launcher in certain positions. So I don't know. It's yet to be seen. This is definitely like a big question mark. It's nice that he has it, although at the same time, it might be bad that he's forced to commit to it. But who knows? Maybe he has a 50-50 or some other designation. Like once again with Kazumi, for an example, this would be her 3-2. She also has a 3-1, so maybe Jin will have a 3-1, or maybe the idea is just 4-3 cancels into itself for plus frames. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. Similar vein to backsway with Kazuya, down forward 4 being a heat engager. Down forward 4 assuming is the same move. I don't know for a fact. Is a sizable buff for sure. Down forward 4 as it stands is a -3 counter hit launcher. If down forward 4 still has its counter hit launching, this is a massive buff, and at the same time, it's going to be a meta move. Down forward 4 already is very strong. You just have to place it well. But now if it becomes a heat engager, and it's very safe on block, allowing for like side sways, down 4 mash, parry, power crush, rage art, hop kick, you name it. Yeah, I mean that's you make a good move even better by buffing it. Speaking of making good moves better, 442 being a launcher, kind of similar situation, gives Jin a long range Punisher heat dashing option. At the same time, the fact that he gets the launcher is really nice, but in my opinion, 442 not being a natural hit knockdown or wall splat without meter, like whenever you haven't popped the rage out or heat yet, yeah, that's a major nerf. So this is probably a buff and a nerf simultaneously. I would prefer if 442 wasn't, but understandably, knockdowns are a thing of the past in T8. That's just the design philosophy of Tekken 8 in general. So, of course, 442 is a signature attack, and as such got nerfed. So, yeah, buff in the fact that he got a long range, easy convertible, right? Because forward 4 like requires counter hit. This would be a natural hitting 442 advancing Punisher, the punish long range attacks. So, benefit there. Overall, a nerf if you don't have meter yet. The good news with Jin, chances are you're going to be in heat like immediately because all these moves, for the most part, are applicable. 1+2 is super good as a Punisher. 442 can hit anytime. It's already a safe option, so, you know, very strong. A slightly dissimilar vein, I suppose. Zen 2 is a massive nerf. This is a gigantic nerf. So, assuming Zen 2 is still -14 side sway attack, yeah, he has better options to mash out than essentially a side sway. Because keep in mind, like, they're not even talking here about like up forward 2, right? If anything, maybe up forward 2 would probably be heat engager, but it's not. Probably because they realize it might be a little bit too strong. But Zen 2, in the same way, is essentially a side sway evasive attack. So it becoming a heat engager is really nice, but at the same time is a massive buff because A, if you're at the wall, it doesn't give you a splat, of course, without heat, in which case Zen 2 can be launch punishable to quite a few characters. And then also, if you are able to risk it and you get this side sway, the fact that you don't get a first try wall splatter knockdown basically means you lose momentum instantly. So while you are able to do a 50-50 afterwards, that's about it. You can't get a YOLO knockdown by them losing that. So in my opinion, massive nerf to Zen 2. Okay, Jun, bear with me a second here. 1+2 is her counter hit launcher in Tekken Tag 2. 1+2 was reworked, I believe, in Tekken 8. So it becoming a natural hit heat engager is a benefit, and same thing a nerf because it's still knockdown and kind of causes shakeout in Tekken Tag 2. So in certain situations, you can kind of YOLO 1+2, and if the opponent's caught sleeping, you can free convert off of them for no reason. It's one of her major benefits of being like an anti-scrub character is she just has a lot of like general mechanical knowledge checks, not specific to her, but specific to the game. And yeah, people don't know about them. So 1+2 gives her kind of, I don't really think it's high evasive. It is kind of abrupt. So it's a buff nerf. I'd say more of a nerf than anything. But yeah, I presume 1+2 is still a counter hit launcher. In which case, yeah, this is a perfectly fine use move. If it's not a counter hit launcher, 1+2 being a heat engager is a massive, massive nerf. But I don't know for a fact. Okay, so forward 2 is basically her Tooth Fairy, her long range I-17, just like with Asuka. The difference, though, with hers is she can cancel her forward 2 into her damage me, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the technical name is. The Kazama power, okay, I guess. Rather than being launch punishable, it's safer, but she takes damage. So forward 2 being a heat engager in that sense of the fact that, you know, you are basically committing to it, I guess isn't that terrible. So by forward 2 and canceling, kind of, I guess, gives her an option select. So I was going to say nerf, but the more I think about it, actually that sounds pretty good. For people who don't know, this is just my opinion on Jun. Jun's not a good character. Like in Tekken Tag 2, she's a very knowledge check heavy character, but overall, kind of lackluster. She definitely got propped up really by Tekken Tag 2 system and just general, what's the word I'm looking for, input latency. In Tekken 8, while her, you know, as her core character, probably, I'm going to say right now, probably isn't going to be very good. The fact that she can make things safer and have more properties is what's really going to prop her to the next level. So by the fact of them giving forward 2 into 1+2, an option select to make it safer, and heat engager, you know, at first is going to be a detriment, of course, because you're not getting a launcher on the initial Tooth Fairy. But once you have heat, that's it. You're good to go. You get a safer launcher, long range Tooth Fairy, massive damage. Not much to really hate about. Sidestep 4, being a heat engager, same thing. I don't know if this is a counter hit launcher. If Sidestep 4 still is a counter hit launcher, or knockdown rather, yeah, this is a good buff. Also the fact that I believe Sidestep 4, I don't know if it's plus, it's either very slight plus or very slight negative, which then allows her to basically mash out if she guesses correctly. So I think this is a pretty sizable buff, assuming Sidestep 4 still has the counter launching properties or knockdown properties.
Hey guys, Tyler here, using a different mic, that way you know that this is an editor's note. Yeah, so I did a little bit of research here, and I believe they are saying that the new input for Izu is probably up 2, in which case they're talking about Izu 3. But assuming Izu 3 is the same properties from Tekken Tag 2, where it's basically a Kazama style back 3, that would mean if Izu 3 is a heat engager, would be a significant nerf to the move, because presumably it's just as punishable, but now with less reward on the first hit. So major nerf on that. Regarding Mirare, I guess, I used to be called, I believe, Gen, so I don't know if they're just making the stance name differently or what, if it's something else. But if you watch the trailer for Jun, it's basically the Claudio back forward too. So yeah, I think that's probably going to be a sizable little buff to her. She has a Claudio style back 4-2 now. Now granted, it's coming off of stance and it's not part of string, so it's a little bit devalued there, but I think it is a good addition to her overall game plan. So for that alone, being a new move, yeah, probably at least 1+.
Okay, Paul Pheonix. This is going to be a problem. Paul Pheonix is probably one of the best characters of the original 10, who will be sizably stronger because of the heat engager system. Yeah, a lot of new moves up there in case you don't know. Forward 4 is one of the better ones in the game. They've added a homing, low crushing, kick, knockdown, heat engager that's not just safe on block, but I think is pretty safe on block. I want to say somewhere in the ballpark of like -2, -3, allowing him to mash out. Same thing with like with a shoulder option or whatnot. Forward 2, new move as well. Heat engager, we saw it in the video. It's the attack throw. So yeah, so you get that. I think I think it was 14 frames. I guess I can correct myself if I find out after. But yeah, he has his new 14 frame, causing a standing stun, in which case he gets heat engager. Off of standing though, off of once he's ready in heat, yeah, I think a lot of the benefit of it disappears. So whereas you can turn forward 2 in a heat dash, in which case you have a 14 frame launching heat dash, you also have to think of the moves outside of heat, and that's something I haven't mentioned yet. So hey, forward 2 is great when you have heat and you have a 14 frame launcher. But what happens when you don't have heat? Comparing a character like Jin, okay, so you've already used your heat in your heat engager 442, right? And you've lost the rest of your heat, so you can't heat dash, right? Forwards 2 is still going to be a wall splatting knockdown safe mid. What's Paul forward 2 going to be, right? A plus frame option that is barely any plus frames because you don't have the ability to heat dash it or heat engage it, right? So I can't really compare forward 2 versus anything else other than maybe like back 3. But at the same time, who cares? Okay, you now have a standing Asuka up forward 2. No one cares. Literally no one cares. Terrible move outside of heat. But a move like forward 4 is going to be hella good. It's going to be crazy good. Like, a forward 4 is still going to be applicable at any sort of position. You have the opponent by the wall. Uh-oh. Here comes the QCF4. Here comes the Sway 3. Or, sorry, QCF3, Sway 3. Here comes Demo Man. Here comes Heat Smash, which is a low. Okay, I'm going to duck. Forward 4. Okay, now I'm dead. Boom. Okay, what is forward 2 do? Oh, yeah, it doesn't do anything. Oh, okay. Now we see the problem with Heat Engager and Heat Dash, right? The move still has to be good. Like Pheonix Smasher is a good move. It's still a good move. Like outside of Heat, it's still a good move. But a few of these are pretty poor. Up 2 is a great example here. Up 2, while it is essentially the same move, it did get a buff on speed. So it's a little bit closer now to Miguel up forward 1. Up forward 2 being a heat engager, because of the fact it also has been buffed, is a sizable buff. Even outside of heat, it's annoying that, of course, you have to take a little bit more inherent risk to get a heat engager. But up forward 2 is really strong, especially now that it's faster. Yeah, and it's plus on block, and then also it gives you heat dash for even more plus, so on and so forth. This is rough. Okay, so here's the good news. So Pheonix Smasher is a long-range 16-frame move. You can actually punish other long-range attacks, like, for instance, Paul versus Paul. If he does Death Fist, you can Death Fist him back. If you have Execution, it's difficult, possible for a human. Me and my friends have done it before, had, Death Fist matches. It's very fun. So, getting access to a 16-frame long-range Punisher is tremendous. Also the fact that, of course, even if it doesn't give you the launcher, it can be heat dashed for, plus frame options, or even a lot of characters, like, for instance, going back to Kazumi, can't actually punish Death Fist. So, yeah, it's a nice buff in context of using heat and the possibility to make it into a launcher. When you're not in heat, though, unfortunately, Death Fist is massively, massively nerfed. So, imagine you've lost 80% health. You get the opponent to the wall, and now you try to do Death Fist, and the opponent guessed wrong. So instead of you getting a 50 damage mid into wall splat, resplat, with the back dash, up forward throw, up 3-4, resplat into 3-2, sway 2, and now they've lost, what is that, like almost like 60% of their health. Now imagine you're trying to do a launch punishable mid. Okay, first of all, they block it, you die. They launch you. Okay, because you're at the wall, right? Their back's to the wall. Okay, less pushback, they launch your ass. Let's say you're down 80%. You get that Heat Smasher, that Pheonix Smasher. Boom! Perfect read. I just risked my life to win. And you don't get a wall splat. That's it. Now, granted, your Pheonix pressure is tremendous because you have the unblockable charge attack, which causes wall splat, like Falcon Lom style. But overall, you risked your life down 80%, and all you get is a 50-50. welcome to the future, Paul. You shouldn't be using Pheonix Smasher unless you know it's going to hit, and that's your bad. So for that alone, I mean, I'm going to give it a plus still. I'm going to give it the tiniest plus because it's barely a buff. When you're in heat, it's great. Outside of heat, it's great. Or it's less great, but it's still great. Before heat, it's maybe one of the worst things you could possibly do with the character. Unlike Sway 2, which is a massively good attack. Now, you know how I mentioned how you're risking your life to get a heat engager or get a wall splatter knockdown for 60% damage. Now let's do the flip side of the coin. Sway 2 is a heat, the Pheonix Smasher, except it's not launch punishable. Better yet than launch punishable, it's safe. It's like minus 7 or 8, and actually has pretty good pushback. So a lot of characters, if they overcommit trying to punish you for a safe attack, you just kill them. Sway 2 being a launching option when you have heat, safe on block, and even in the same situation where you're down 80% and you need to get a wall splat going, even in that situation, at least you're not risking your health. So Sway 2 being a heat engager, massive buff. It is a big buff. I wouldn't give it a 2+er, but it's still it's a big 1+ for sure. Okay, martial law. This is for sure, and I'm not really the law expert here. This is definitely a tale of two cities. So on first look, an option like 111, which is brand new to T8, might seem really cool. It's like, oh yeah, I got a 10 frame hit confirmable, launching option 10 frame. But then what happens if they block it? Oh, well, now you're minus 14. Okay, well, I could just do 1, 2, 3, right? No, you can't. 1, 2, 3 doesn't wall spot anymore. It's like, oh, now I see the problem with law. It's now I can't use 10 frame pressure unless I take a massive inherent risk, like for instance going for wall bounce. And even that, like the 1-2 canceling options for wall bounce, they don't wall bounce anymore. Wall bounce is gone in T8. So you have to think of Marshall in the context of the new system. So yeah, 111 is a cool heat engager. Unfortunately, kind of similar to Paul, you need to either be in heat already or have used heat to get maximum value out of 111. Other than that, you're not wall spotting your opponent anymore, amigo. 1, 2, 3 is gone. And 111 on first hit is a heat engager for 50-50. So yeah, this is same thing. This is a buff nerf in context. The move itself is going to be perfectly applicable to use, but it's not as good as most people think. And I believe Rip talked about this too. So take a look at Rip's video. Okay, 122 heat engager, massive nerf. It's a big nerf. The only benefit, as you see there, is on the right side. Back 1 and back 1-2, able to transition into DSS, is all it has going for it. Back 1-2-2 is already a minus 14, presumably on the second hit still, minus 14 on the third hit, and you can sidestep the last hit left or right. Now granted, if you're in heat, that gives you a safe chip damaging wall splat potential or launcher, which is okay. But outside of heat, it is complete garbage. Effectively launch punishable, sidesteppable option. And keep in mind, whereas you can cancel back 1 and back 1-2 into DSS, that means kind of similar to Chaheen and Leo, you're not confirming back 1-2-2. So if you confirm the back 1-2-2 too late, you're not getting that wall splat. And similarly, unless DSS has a quick option for confirm, you're just getting plus frame. So you have to deal with the same thing they have. So massive nerf to back 1-2-2. Hopefully that plenty explained it. Okay, Dragon Fury is a new move. This is basically, what is he called? Forest Law Wall Stand 3. This is a brand new move, and it's a massive buff. He now has essentially a low crushing, safe hop kick wall splat. I don't know if it actually is safe, but I know for a fact it is significantly safer and more evasive than up forward 4. So this gives him a long range advancing attack, kind of similar to 443. Being like a long range possible launcher, probably not so much for 443. But yeah, the fact that he can have this advancing attack, low crushing, plus frame option, launching with heat, even outside of heat, a forward 3 is going to be very, very good. So in context, massive. This is probably a two pluser here. This is probably a for sure a 2+. Easily one of the best heat engagers in the game. Okay, 443 is interesting. As mentioned there, DSS forward 3 is still the mechanic to get it out. It deals chip damage. I don't know if 443 is still launch punishable. I believe it is. But at the same time, there's no more wall bounce. So really all you're doing with it is using it as a plus frame tool to maybe get into heat, or rather to heat dash specifically. So yeah, it really depends on how punishable it is. Overall, I can't see this being a massive buff compared to something like up 4-3, which is going to be easily one of like Law's best moves to kind of spam in context. 4-4-3, limited use. You might be able to find a place to use it, but I don't think as a heat engager it really benefits because you need that natural hit lockdown. You need the natural hit like wall splat. You need that wall bounce, and yeah, wall bounce is gone and no more wall splat because it's a heat engager.
Hey guys, Editor Tyler here. So I was completely wrong about DSS forward 1. Basically, DSS forward 1 is the advancing mid punch out of stance. In context, if DSS forward 3 is safer, it's now minus 13 rather than launch punishable, and DSS forward 1 is still minus 14 on block. Basically, all you're getting is 2 frames quicker, lose the power crush for a 1 frame worse on block mid. So I think if DSS forward 1 losing its natural hit wall spat property as your first heat is probably pretty detrimental. The good news for Law is, for the most part, chances are you already have heat by this point, especially if you're, relying on like an up 4-3 meta, for instance. But in the case where you get the opponent to the wall, are forced to do a 50-50 and just opt to do a forward 1 instead of like a forward 3 for the speed, yeah, you might actually pay the premium for doing that. So for that reason alone, even though this is still a new move and newer move in context with heat engager being a launcher, I can't really see the value in it. So unlike the 4-3 being a plus minus, I think this one be solidly a minus attack.
Okay, King is interesting because overall his heat is basically just the power crush version of JGR, and then furthermore, you use it to get access to his throws, which gives you more and more heat. So for the most part, the ability to get into heat early is probably not super valuable unless you're like playing very, hard in the paint, like aggressive playstyle. E.g. how T8 is supposed to be played supposedly. Although we found out time and time again, that it just doesn't. It doesn't seem that be that way. And this is a great example. 4-2-1 is King's long range I-15. Typically you use 4-2-1. I think the most common situation, to be honest, apart from a Punisher, is when the opponent's on the ground by a wall. You backdash or JGS away, they do something stupid like wake up 3 or wake up 4, and then you 4-2-1 them right into the wall, and they basically are set up to be a kill. Losing the ability to wall splat and knockdown off of that 15, and keep in mind you're risking your life going for it, period, is not good. Not good. That is a massive, massive nerf. Oh, hey, cool. Out of 15, I now have a launcher. Who cares? Like who cares? Honestly, the where this move is designed for is gone. So for what little benefit you're getting on a long range 15, is probably eaten up by the fact that people are going to have to play differently and not use 4-2-1 how it's not just designed to be used, but how the meta has evolved to use it, period. Now, granted, this probably seems short-sighted, but man, 4-2-1 was magical as a wall splat. So unless you're in heat, probably not that magical anymore. 4-2+3 is an interesting one. So this presumably is losing its power crush. I don't know for a fact, in which case 4-2+3 is probably going to be like Miguel 4-2+3, so a safe mid shoulder tackle. So if it is no longer power crush and also is safe, yeah, this is a good buff. This is a massive buff. This is huge. Again, in a yin yang comparing it to 4-2-1, the position where you're going to be using shoulder tackle isn't necessarily going to be the same place where you're going to use 4-2-1 as a Punisher. So while you can use JGS away into tackle, and in a similar vein, you're not going to be using them in those positions. So the positions where you are going to use 4-2+3 will might detriment you by not getting that wall splat in certain like YOLO situations, but at the same time, allows you to apply pressure. And not only that, if you heat dash it on block, you're plus, and on as a range 2.5 like shoulder tackle, the ability to like just get a random launcher effectively depending on wall positioning period is actually pretty good. So yeah, this is again completely dependent on if this is safe or not. If this is safe, yeah, this is a big buff. I'm not gonna give it a 2, but I'm definitely giving it a plus. Okay, Demek 1+2/2 is a brand new attack. It's basically an absorbing power crush into elbow. This appears to be the most common way to get into heat, at least in the beta. So I think, yeah, the new move, I think it's a pretty good benefit because once again, you want to get into heat early just because of the value of JGR being armored and allowing you to apply pressure by just going into JGR. Combine that with his currently new throw game, like buff throw game, and the ability to get more heat by getting throws. It's pretty good. Yeah, so this is a new move, but it's also going to be a major benefit to King's just general playstyle. So yeah, as a launcher, probably not that valuable, but as a heat engager, sure, yeah, great. It's a great move for as a heat engager. A lot of characters would be lucky to have a move this good, so definitely give it at least a +1. Without extra context, though, I can't really give it a +2, but for now, I think it's definitely a +1. Okay, so JGS forward 1+2 is interesting. So this is kind of what we're talking about. So you saw it in the trailer, out of JGR, JGR, it's his unblockable high. You really can't necessarily, I believe, like react to it per se. But yeah, you can read it and it leaves you open to other options. So for the first throw, being an inescapable heat engager is pretty good. You know, when you are in JGR and you get these command throws, he gives you that blue spark option, which then means he gets more and more heat. The fact that he can keep armoring, keep forcing 50-50s, and also have a, inescapable throw off of his new key stance is really, really good. So same thing, even though this is a brand new move, I'm going to still give this easily a +1. This is going to be a big one. Okay, down to 1+4 is a move I have no clue. I think this is his variation on... Let's see, I think it's his variation on the crouching one throw, which is basically the extra power bomb. I don't know the technical term on it. It might be called the face buster. And I believe if he does down 2+4, that is his chain command crouching throw. So basically, if you have no health remaining, mash 2. If you have a little bit of health remaining, mash 1. Simply because, yeah, a lot of people will pick options depending on what is going to kill you instantly versus what might not be able to. So, yeah, so I don't know 100% what this move is, and I don't think it's in the trailer. But yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. If he has a command low crouch throw that also cannot be escaped, as mentioned there. So it's a heat version of it, and it's a blue spark, so it gives you more heat. Yeah, sure. Why not? I'll give this a +1. Granted, as a heat dash, these throws not giving you heat dash is, of course, a detriment compared to other characters. But for just executing on King's general game plan, yeah, you can't beat these. The extra heat is crazy because once again, 10 seconds is already most of the round, and then the fact that you can maybe do like 20 seconds into a win, pretty good. Okay, Larsy boy, Lars. So 111, of course, was his knockdown, very similar to Law 111, -14, hit confirmable high. With Lars, this is nothing but a buff. Like, straight up, nothing but a buff. Nothing to say really about it. You're taking the same risk, and now when you are outside of heat, will then become a launcher. So he has a 10-frame hit confirmable, -14 launcher is really, really good. And like I mentioned, unlike Law, who actually has like a full jab game to complement his 111. So now the 111 is replacing his jab game. Lars doesn't have that. So who cares if 111 doesn't give you, it doesn't give you wall splat, because the position where you're going to use 111 is at the position where you're probably already winning with Lars. Whereas a character like Law, that might not necessarily be the case. So yeah, who cares if 111 doesn't wall splat anymore? Now that's a launcher, because you're going to be using it only when you're at plus anyway, when you're winning. So this is more of a win more card, but at the same time, if you're playing from behind, is also a 10 frame, get out of jail free, my turn launching. So this is a major, major buff. 3+4, to be honest, I can't think of what that actually is. That's a brand new move that's in T8. I don't know 100% what that is. Yeah, I have no comment. Question mark. I honestly have no clue what that is. Okay, DE12 being a launcher. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. I mean, cool, you have a launching option of DE12, but at the same time, it's like Kunimitsu set 1-2. Just duck it. You can't heat dash it if it doesn't get blocked, which is something I don't think I've mentioned yet either. All these moves being heat dashable, presume that it's going to hit and it's going to launch, right? But 2, presumes that you can heat dash the string to make it safer. A move like DE12 and a move like, King forward 2-1 is not safer because you can duck it, and you can't cancel on whiff. You can only cancel on block, to the best of my knowledge. So yeah, DE12 losing its property, in my opinion, massive nerf. Because unlike 111, where you're going to be using it as an I win card, DE12 is typically used as an I win in the sense where I'm using it for evasion. If I lose my wall stand 2, drop DE12 evasion, and now it's no longer a launcher and I've risked my life, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be using that very often. So yeah, bad. Kind of similar, DE3 is his plus frame mid kick. There are no more wall bounces. So obviously this isn't going to wall bounce. At the same time, outside of heat, you don't get a wall splat or knockdown either. Is not great. So as a block tool, DE3 is perfectly fine. But as I'm going to mix you up with the wall tool, yeah, unfortunately DE3 is a nerf in that sense. So yeah, I think overall, even considering the fact that wall bounces are gone, I think this is a nerf. I mean, it's still probably going to be plus frames on block and chip damage, who cares? But I think this is a nerf. The place where you're going to use the E3 is in a similar vein. You're going to want to use it for wall splat. And if you can't wall splat on demand, that's not good. So realistically, no one's going to be using DE3 open field. I mean, I guess you could now, it being a launcher. But same thing, DE3 is still weak to sidestep. Just sidestep it, you don't have to worry about it. And the positions where you're typically going to use it as Lars are now diminished by it losing its knockdown. Okay, silent entry, which is interesting, they marked it as DE forward, because that's silent entry. Silent entry 1 being a heat engager is a massive, massive buff. As it stands, same thing. SC1 is a wall bounce. Of course, it won't wall bounce. Now SC1 will not give you, it won't be a knockdown, of course, so at the wall it's a little bit less valuable, but at the same time, people aren't randomly using SE1, especially if it's going to be apart from wall bounce. So yeah, it's a little bit of a nerf, but at the same time, I think the places you can now use SE1 are going to be huge. So unlike DE12, which is a mid-high, SE1 is a mid. So on block, that means it's going to be plus frames. On hit, part of the 50-50, kind of similar to DE3, granted. Although DE3 is a little bit less valuable because DE4 is a different move now. But SE1 will be naturally valuable. It will be a back roll catch, which it currently already can be used as. It's a 50-50 for wall bounce in this position. If you have rage, or heat rather, yeah, it turns to a launcher. I mean, there's nothing to hate about this move. For the most part, yeah, that's definitely a +1. I can't really give it a +2. because of its usage outside of heat, but for the most part, yeah, there's nothing to hate about it. Also, the fact that you can do a long combo, maybe end with like SE1, and then do your sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like Rage Drive cancel on SE1 plus 2, because keep in mind, this is SE1 plus 2 redone. Think about it, right? SE1 plus 2 plus frame option sets up DE2 trap is a natural launcher. It's the same move, but now you can do it on demand, right? Hey, think about it. Think about it. Man, I'm losing my voice. I'm sorry. Okay, Xiaoyu. Oh no, what did they do to you, Ling? What did they do to you? Down back 2. There's literally nothing to talk about. Down back 1, being a heat engager, is horrible. Massive, massive nerf. So it's essentially a safe launcher, which you might be like, oh, that's cool, Tyler. Safe launcher. Yeah, but she has back 4-1. Like, what? Who cares about down back 1 being safe? Because it's already safe. You don't make things, these moves don't get better on their own, right? You pop heat drive, and assuming it's a non, if it's a jailing or a mid ender, you get plus frame. So even if you don't get the launcher, it's better than safe. It's plus. But down back 1 is already safe. So you're already taking away half of the value. And the other half of the value, in my opinion, is the fact that down back 1 is a wall splat knockdown option. So now what's the meta going to be for Ling? Down back 1 open field? Huh? Who cares? Who cares? You get rage early or heat early, you get a knockdown, and now cool, you get a launcher. Literally, who cares? Look at all this. Look at these moves. 1-1-1 with Jin. Shoulder tackle with King here. Up forward 3. Like, look at these moves. A sway 2, QCF 2, forward 4. Like, look at this. 1+2. This is a joke. Ling is a joke character. Down back 1 becoming a heat engager is absolutely crazy. I'm not a Ling player. I'm insulted for Ling players. This is a crazy nerf. I don't know if I've done any 2 minuses yet. This is 100% a 2- move. Can it be used? Yes. Is it going to be spammed? Yes. Does it make it a good move? Absolutely not. This is a joke of a move. Especially when, once again, you compare it to back 4-1, which is going to be an insanely, insanely good move. Back 4-1 gives Ling a long-range, basically long-range launcher, plus frame option, Punisher. It's not as good as Stand 3, but it's the ability to apply it for usage is massively good. It's usable in almost every single situation, and the fact that you can turn it into both a plus frame, 2 hitting option, as well as a launcher is just the icing on the cake. Compare back 4-4, to back 4-1. Uncomparable. Back 4-1 is everything back 4-4 wishes it could be. Back 4-1 is going to be meta defining for Ling. Same thing, I can't give it a +2 simply because it's a new move, but just general theory crafting, back 4-1 is going to be annoying, and you better batten down the hatches because you're going to see it non-stop. You get your fingers ready, and I'm sorry, it's going to be meta defining. That's all you're going to see. Okay, RDS 1+2-4. What's to say? Assuming it's still a high attack, high ender, same thing. And like not even assuming, okay, you lose the wall splat, you lose the knockdown. I highly doubt it doesn't still launch. Like I'm sure 1+2-4 is probably a counter hit instant spin launcher. So at least she probably still has that. But yeah, this is a massive nerf. Again, you're defining a heat engager move or a string by something that is not just seeable, but high, but is also seeable. Yeah, highly, highly devalued, and the fact that you have to risk your life to try to get a wall splat when, hey, you have a move like down back 1 is bad. With that being said, I don't think this is a -2 bad. This is probably just a -1 bad. But yeah, I mean, everyone's going to have the muscle memory to duck it. You're never going to get it as valuable. So who cares here? Hypnotist 2 is interesting. Hypnotist or Hypnotizer will be a major part of Xiaoyu's game, and the fact that on natural hit will now be a heat engager instead of knockdown is, I guess, a little bit of nerf. I'm sure some Ling players are going to hate this change. For the most part, though, I mean, I don't hate it. At least this kind of shows a little bit of creativity when it comes to Namco. So now on block, you have massive plus frames, right? You do Hypnotizer, you hold it for like a second or two. It goes up to like, I think up to like plus 100 frames or something. So it's unblockable. So what happens if they get hit? Okay, well, you don't get a knockdown anymore, but now you can keep getting, letting your pressure go. Or Hypnotizer, you catch them looking, they get hit, you have heat, and now you turn to a launcher. So overall, I don't really see it as being a really big nerf. I see it being more utility sort of attack. And yeah, seeing as how Hip is going to be a massive part of her game plan, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's probably a buff overall. Maybe a little bit nerf here, but overall I think overarching will be a buff. So I'm sure a lot of Ling players hate this change. I don't necessarily hate it. Yeah, AOP 2-1 is basically her hit confirmable mid palm attack. AOP is highly evasive. Her losing wall splat and natural hit knockdown does hurt overall, but you have to take the bad with the good. So in the situation where you get the opponent to the wall somehow without causing heat, and now you bet AOP 2-1, they duck, and then they eat it, or they mash, and they don't hit your AOP, and now you don't get a wall spot. Okay, yeah, that sucks. But think about the value open field. So you're not forced to go for AOP down 1+2, which is a safe launcher, granted, or AOP 1+2, which is a safe counter launcher. Now instead you have hyper evasive 2-1 that is plus frames and a launcher, and it should be really quick to see or understand the value of it. Open field, sidestep left, AOP, you mash out 2-1, it's my turn. Wow, really, really good. So yeah, sure, in the most positions where Ling players are going to be using it currently, it's a nerf, but looking ahead to the future, this will be just as meta defining as AOP back 4-1. Just as meta defining. Get ready for it. This is a buff. This is definitely a +1. It might even be a +2 if it wasn't for the fact that where you want to use it typically is getting nerfed. Okay, good. We're not done yet. I thought so. I think we're getting close though. Jack is interesting because he's basically absorbing a lot of Gigas' options, and with that you can see the influence of Gigas onto Jack. Great example is back 2. Power up by charging it, chip damage on guard, plus frames on block presumably, even with the non-option. So of all these other attacks where we've seen these heat engagers, other than down back 1, actually, you know what, that's not a great example. Of all the heat engagers we've seen, we really haven't seen any like plus frame heat engagers. So while it sucks that he's losing his wall splat and possibly knockdown at the wall, to be honest, back 2 doesn't really splat that well, especially on weird axes. So usually it's best used as a knockdown option. So losing knockdown versus wall splat is not nearly as big a problem. At the same time, now that he can get into Gamma Howl, the new Giga stance, the flex stance, via options like a plus frame back 2, not bad. So a little bit of a nerf, but at the same time, I think the benefits outweigh the nerf. Okay, back 1+2 is a new move. Well, not really. Okay, it's a take on the old forward 1+2. The good news with back 1+2 is that it's now safer on block, but still being the same amount of range, and I think it's about the same speed. I think it still hits on 16. So it's a nerf in the fact that there's no more wall bounce, so you don't get a launcher. But at the same time, it's now a safer option and gives Jack range, long-range Punisher. So I wouldn't give this a +2, but same thing. I think back 1+2 is going to be meta-defining. It's going to be meta-defining into getting into heat, it's going to be meta fighting, defining outside of heat, or sorry, when you have heat mode engage, in which case you get a long range plus frame launcher. And then best of all, as mentioned earlier, outside of heat will still get you wall spot and knockdown. So you have a safer wall spot knockdown option. So yeah, across the board, it's beneficial. It's just with T8 mechanics, it's a little bit nerfed, but it's not 100% fair. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be it's like a +2 strength. Okay, Gamma Hell 4 is basically Jack's charge kicking. I don't know necessarily. It's hard to say because this is essentially Mardic, or sorry, not Mardic. I mean, Mardic, sure, back 4 a little bit, but it's more like, what is he called? Gigas stand 4. So it's some move that was moved to Gigas. Honestly, I think this is perfectly fine because I think as it stands, Gigas stand 4 doesn't knock down. So the fact that they're giving Jack the same version, but better yet, when heat mode is engaged already, then turns into a launcher, is actually pretty good. Yeah, honestly, I don't have any problems with that at all. If I knew more about it, like when it came to its like frame data and just general usage, it might actually be a +2. But yeah, be prepared for, like, very similar to the back +2, be prepared for like Flex 4 to be meta defining. It's going to be a very strong option. We even see it, it's so strong, we actually see it in the Brian video on top of that. So, okay, Particle Barrier, very similar to the, what do you call it? Rage Stripe of Gigas. Similar move, plus frame option. I don't think anything is necessarily guaranteed, although I don't know for a fact. But yeah, it's going to be big. This same thing like the other moves. I don't know if meta defining is quite the right word. It might be just due to its speed and the fact that, like, you know, Jack can like just pop it, unlike a Gigas Rage Drive, which requires him to be in Rage. Yeah, Jack can kind of just go for the parry and pop heat early, right? And then who's to say once he's in Gamma How with Rage or with, you know, heat, he pops the particle barrier, and now he gets 2 Gigas options, and best of all, if it hits, it's a launcher, right? Presumably. Yeah, damn, you know what? I really can't say it's a +2 yet, but I'm gonna give it a +1 and a Phantom +2. Because I can't see this move not being insanely strong and meta-defining, honestly. Very similar to King Crouch Throw. Yeah, we have the crouching down 2+4, which is really good. So a heat engaging option. Unlike King's, I believe you can heat dash this. So if you can heat dash the Crouch Throw, this is a major buff. If you can't, it's still a pretty good buff because it allows you to get into heat right away by doing a safer style attack. I don't know. It's hard to say. Overall, I think it's a benefit. Yeah, I'll take a look at the move list afterwards just to make sure it's the move I think it is. I'm pretty sure it's the gun attack. So in which case, it's like the Peachak gun attack. So that would make sense. You could heat dash it. So I'll still give this a +1. Simply because I don't know for a fact if that's what I think it is. It's the heat dash, like P-Jack gun throw. In which case, if it's a launcher, it makes sense. Would be pretty cool. In which case, it might actually be a +2. But for now, I think +1 is fair. Okay, and I'm going to say, this is the last one. So Nina Williams. Yeah. A lot of what ifs is really the big one here. Blom Bomb, okay, I'll have to check. I think Blom Bomb still is her. Okay, it is. There it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it still is her Power Crush. Losing the ability to get a natural hit knockdown, so very similar to, you know, characters we had seen earlier. A lot of her value for Blom Bomb comes at using it when your opponent's back is to the wall and trying to score the knockdown, otherwise -14. You know, so on and so forth. Losing that is a big deal, but at the same time, Blom Bomb can be used mid-combo, and the fact that she might be able to tag on an extra amount of damage, for instance, ending with like a single butterfly flap into Blom Bomb, she then does heat dash cancel into heat smash, or possibly Rage Art, is probably pretty good. Or who knows, maybe if you have double meter, I would assume she can Blom Bomb, and like just extend the combo even further. I don't know, to be honest. I think it's probably going to be pretty good. So same thing, it's a little bit of nerf here, but overall, the applications really just come down to your imagination. I think overall, +1, I think is pretty fair. I can't see it being like so meta defining it's going to be like a really big deal, but I think +1 is probably pretty fair. So 4-3+4-2, I believe is her gun attack. I believe, I don't know for a fact. So it's hard to say. I believe the guns are mid. I think, I would imagine linear. So yeah, if she gets access to the gun attack outside of, for a plus frame option or possibly conversion, same thing, tag it on in a combo, very similar to Blom Bomb, is probably pretty good. So yeah, same thing, brand new move, and it's going to be applicable in a lot of things. Meta defining, probably not. But overall, I think it's a lot more valuable than probably people are going to give it credit for. I'm just wondering, to be honest, assuming this is the gun attack, let's say you're full screen from Nina. She gun attacks you, right? And she goes into heat engage. I mean, does that mean, does she run like full screen for plus frames? Or does she get plus frames and is she like full screen still? I don't know for a fact, but I'm a little excited. Maybe it is, who knows? Okay, Reverberation Blom or Palm Bomb, down back 1+2. I can't imagine this being anything other than a buff. Down back 1+2 in Tekken 6, I think, had a combo line depending on wall positioning. And I think in Tekken 7, it doesn't do like much of anything. I think even in Tekken Tag 2, I think they nerfed it. So, or maybe in Tekken Tag 2, no, she recovers so slow. Yeah, this is a big buff. Assuming down back 1+2 is still safe, is now a high crushing tool with a really wonky hitbox and can also be heat dash canceled for a like back sway launcher, essentially, is pretty good. In the Nina trailer, we do see her pop it, although it gives the desaturation kind of effect. So maybe between then and now, or whenever this was created, they had changed the design philosophy. But overall, you know what? I'm gonna give it +2. I think this move will be meta defining. Just the fact that she can use it essentially as a back swaying tool. Again, presuming it's safe. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it is -12 with some pushback. But I think it's going to be good. I think this move's going to be really good. Super evasive. I mean, what's not to like about it? Into a launcher, easy launcher conversion is nice being in heat. So, hey, I think it's going to be great. Charge Blom Bomb, or sorry, running Blom Bomb. My apologies. She has a charge Blom Bomb. That's another conversation for another day. Losing the knockdown is a detriment. I really can't see where running Blom Bomb into heat dash would be applicable. This really just feels like I'm churning my slash kick into a launcher, which sounds good, but I don't think it's going to be good. Like, I'm just trying to think of where you'd use it, because running Blom Bomb doesn't really crush that much. So yeah, it's just a slash kick launcher. I don't know, maybe it's more valuable than I think, but man, it's hard to say. I just can't see it being used otherwise. Like, where you can get a running Blom Bomb, wouldn't it be better just to do down back 1+2 anyway? Right? I mean, God, it's hard to say. Honestly, I'm gonna give this a minus. I can't see the value of it. The only value I meant, like I talked about, is just she's the only character with like a running, like running slash kick launcher. But God, I mean, I would feel like if gun attack, right, gun launcher, a normal Blom Bomb launcher. Now, granted, not plus frames, -14, and like compare that to, like, okay, let's move on, because I want to give it a negative. Compare running Blom Bomb to like STFU, to shut up here. Natural hit knockdown, which of course it won't do anymore, so it's a little bit less valuable in that sense. But the position where you're going to be using shut up is going to be in positions where you already have scored a knockdown or have gotten the opponent to the wall. So usually The fact that, you can possibly go for a safe knockdown wall spot without heat. Again, this is one of those moves that becomes infinitely more valuable outside of heat. It maintains all its value. But the fact that you can go for like a random STFU, or possibly the opponent techs incorrectly, and then boom, STFU, and then, oh my god, I get a launcher on my safe Oki attempt, right? On a safe steel pedal, is pretty good. It is pretty good. Same thing. I think STFU is infinitely more valuable than running Bomb Bomb Launcher. So it's interesting in context that, Nina has a backsway, she has a slash kick, and she has a steel pedal, and she has zoning, and a power crush, right? If you just look at like the value of her attacks overall versus like everyone else, yeah, she might have the best heat engagers in the game, apart from Jin, who's insanely good, and I'm probably going to go ahead and give him a +2 Halo or a crown or something to really give it value. But yeah, shut up. I think it's a +2. This is absolutely meta defining. This move is going to be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, I can't see Nina players not spamming it. They already spam it as is. It's a good move. It's one of the best moves in the game. One of the best steel pedals. Obviously not a launcher, but who cares? So, okay, that will do it for the first 10 characters, like I mentioned. We'll probably do a follow-up to this with the BAM top 10. Questions, comments, concerns, hit me up in the comments. YouTube, Reddit, Twitch, Twitter. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next one. Later on.